Should I hit my button on a green countdown? That's not frightening at all. Do I have a clicker?
Oh, you should.
I want to tell you a couple things really fast. The first is that this is a two-part class. So David said some folks asked him, are you repeating the same thing in both classes? And the answer to that is no. Is it on our TV? My bad. So the first part of this, so this is a teacher workshop. What I'm going to do is well, I'll tell you, here's what happened. Kathy and Neil came down for a gospel meeting or a lectureship or something of that nature. And while they were there, we said, hey, y'all should walk down our hallway and see our really cool children's Bible school program. That was a mistake. No, it was not a mistake. Because they said, oh, we want y'all to come to Lehman Avenue and teach everybody all about that. Well, walking through here's how we did our Bible class curriculum is a whole different story than trying to teach you a lesson on Mary Magdalene or the importance of John 17, the Lord's Prayer. Those are good in-depth, like get down into your soul kind of Bible studies. And this is more kind of nuts and bolts, right? And it's important. It's so important. Amen. Because Bible class is one of the most important things that we do for our children. David says that Judges chapter 2 and verse 10 is probably the saddest verse in the Bible. Y'all know what Judges 2:10 says? I'm going to read it to you exactly word for word. When all that generation had been gathered to their fathers, another generation arose after them who did not know the Lord. They didn't know God, nor the work which he had done for Israel. An entire generation of children didn't know God. Why? Because an entire generation of parents failed to teach them about the Lord. We don't want to do that. Now, I'm going to say this. It is not the church's primary responsibility to teach children about God. It is the parents' primary responsibility to teach their children about God. But as a congregation, there are a lot of things that we can do to help parents out. As Bible class educators, there are a lot of things that we can do to make it easier for parents to teach their children. And I think having a robust education program is a really important thing that we can do in order to do that. So what I'm going to do, so this today is not, hey, y'all should immediately implement stepping into the Bible. In fact, I'm not even going to offer you that as an option. What today is about is telling y'all, here's how we did it, and maybe y'all will spark some ideas for your own congregations, for your own Bible study, for your own education programs, and see what you can do. Because the bottom line of the first lecture is you can dream it. And if you can, the second lecture is going to be, well, then you can do it. Here's kind of where I'm going with this. When we started thinking about how we wanted to handle our Bible class education program, we said we really need to be thinking outside the box, but not outside the Bible. And I think that's the very most important thing. So here's what I'm going to tell you about. Our dream as a congregation. I come to you from the Palm Beach Lakes Church of Christ. My accent does not. David and I met at Freed-Hardeman University, and I was blessed to grow up in Henderson, Tennessee. Now listen, I thought everybody in the whole entire world had Bible class programs like we had in Henderson, Tennessee. I did not know how blessed I was. I got to sit at the feet of Miss Laura Laycook as a small child, and I don't know if many of you know that name, but Miss Laura Laycook is a legend, an absolute legend in the field of teaching Bible to small children. I had Bible class teachers as a junior high kid, as a 4th and a 5th grade kid, who were professors over at Freed-Hardeman University. So the level of Bible education that I got growing up was really tremendous. I am the product, I am shaped by an excellent Bible education program. David grew up at Palm Beach Lakes, so he went home to work at his home congregation. This congregation has a really strong history of good Bible class programs. Y'all, we had great Bible class teachers. We had deacons who were encouraged and wanted our children to learn. We had preachers who were preaching us good, meaty lessons from the pulpit. We had elders and a consistency of leadership. But you know what we had? We had sort of scattershot education in our elementary and like lower elementary programs. We had great stuff, but we were using a little bit of this curriculum over here, a little bit of this curriculum over here, and much of the material that we were using was dated, copyrighted like in the 1950s, and there was nothing bad about it. It was all good, sound material. It just didn't fit us. We're a very diverse congregation, not just from a cultural standpoint. At one point we counted up in our membership over 40 different nationalities just in our membership. So we're a very culturally diverse congregation. Socioeconomic status, very diverse. Palm Beach Lakes is very much a melting pot. And so the old curriculum that was written like for the Bible Belt, you know, we are not in the Bible Belt. And it was great, really good stuff, but it just didn't fit us. Additionally, much of those things were written, like a lot of the folks who come through Palm Beach Lakes are brand new baby Christians. And so a lot of times even our assistant teachers are coming in and serving as assistant teachers because they never got those Bible stories growing up. So we wanted to create a program that was consistent and fit us. The other thing I'm going to tell y'all is if you're writing notes, these are going to be very, very word-heavy slides, and so you may want to get to I'll tell you when we get to the bottom, you may want to take a picture of it because you're going to...
Can we get it? Can we get your PowerPoint?
Yes, we will make those available. Because there's going to be a lot of material and information on these, and I'm going to speak really fast to try to get through it all. So here's the thing. We talked for years and years and years about writing curriculum. Y'all do that? Y'all have great ideas, and you're like, oh, we're going to do this in the Sunday. Oh, it'd be so awesome if we did this. Way down off in the future. And finally, it got to the point where we just had to do it. And we had one of our deacons, at the time he was a deacon, who kind of kicked us in the rear ends. Because this dream eventually became more than just a dream. In December of 2009, this deacon went and visited a congregation that had a Bible class program that he thought he was just very motivated by it. So he came home and he said, hey, I want to tell you about this Bible class program that I saw at this congregation that we visited while we were traveling. And he just went on and on and on and on and on and on about it. And he gathered together, he made an announcement, and he said, we have a discussion about curriculum. If you all would like to, if you were interested, you can come to this meeting because we're going to talk about it. And he sort of threw it out, sort of what they were doing at that congregation. And we listened to it and we're like, there's some really good things about that, but it doesn't fit us. So how can we take some of the things about that curriculum that we liked and make it fit us? And so in just a month after that, we kicked around some ideas and we thought about it and we presented a concept to that committee and to our elders, and that concept was the Stepping Into the Bible program. And we started working on it. And I say we started working on it because we worked on it for a very long time. And we worked on it and we worked on it. And we didn't really have a deadline. We were just, working on it. Until mid-2012, when the deacon who had presented this from the beginning said, hey, now I'm an elder and we're going to get this done. He said, in mid-2012, he said, we are going to start in January of 2013. And we all went, January of 2013. So we did. We buckled down. And, we had really been working hard before, but after that, it was like a locomotive going. So in August of 2019, we actually finished. So I want you all to look at that progression. We had the initial meeting in December of 2009, and we completed the work on the initial draft of it in August of 2019. I want you to think about the commitment that is made there. That was 10 years. It was 10 years of my life. My children, when we first started talking about this, were in the age that they would have been able to go through this program. And when it finally came to fruition, my last child got to go to one semester of it. Right? And so I was working on, for kids who were not even mine. Which isn't that what Bible class teachers do? Isn't that what we are here for? So what I'm telling you that because to write your own curriculum, to create your own stuff that really seriously fits you, It takes sacrifices. We knew it was going to take a lot of time. We knew it was going to be labor intensive. We knew it was going to be not an inexpensive venture. We knew it was going to be something that was going to take us a whole lot of effort to do. But we knew that it was something that we needed to do for our congregation. Did you want to take a picture of that, or I'll just pass? If you want slides, just come see me after, and I'll see what you get. So here's what we did. The first thing that we did was we envisioned it, right? And we developed a curriculum. So we took it from concept all the way out. But here's the thing. We wanted a curriculum that truly fit us, that truly fit our needs. And like I said, we're a very different congregation down in West Palm Beach, Florida. And we wanted a curriculum that was going to fit what we needed to do. But we weren't sure what that looked like, right, when we got started writing. We knew from the outset that we wanted 100% capital letters, Bible, right? A lot of the curriculums that we were looking at were things that, and when I say curriculums, what I should say is programs. A lot of the programs that we have looked at were things that would have worked just as well in a secular classroom as they did in a Bible classroom. And we wanted a Bible program. And not just that, we wanted a program that focused on Bible education over entertainment. Our children are being bombarded on all sides in today's society with entertainment. I mean, children as small as 1 year old are already know how to work cell phones. They already know how to slide to the next one, right? They already know how to do that. I saw just a couple of days ago on Facebook, and I'm paying attention to these things now because I have a grandbaby. How many times can I look back into the conversation? But I was teasing my daughter, who grew up watching, like when she was his age, she was watching Bear in the Big Blue House on Disney Channel, right? And I saw a mom post on Facebook how the TV shows in the 1990s are so much less in your face than the TV shows that the kids are watching now. And she said, do you want your baby to be chilled out and calm? Show them some 1990s like TV programs, Bear in the Big Blue House, things like that. And I thought that was hilarious, and I of course sent it to my daughter and said, do you see what a good mom I was? She's like, yeah, Mom, you're awesome. We wanted a program that focused on teaching our kids more than entertaining our kids. We wanted a complete program. Remember how I told you that we were using a little bit of curriculum from over here, a little bit of curriculum from over here? We had a hodgepodge. But the problem with that was we weren't being super consistent with what our kids were getting. They were getting Bible, and they were getting great stories, and they were getting things that were sound, and they were getting things that were right, and they were getting things that were good. But the 4-year-olds may have gotten Moses, and then the very next quarter they would have gotten the miracles of Jesus. And so you see that there wasn't a string going through, like carrying through. But you know what does? The Bible. The Bible has a string going all the way through it. So we wanted a complete program that was one source from the beginning. We wanted a consistent direction, format. We wanted it to match. We wanted it to look pretty. We wanted it to be useful. We wanted it to be something that our teachers could pick up and work on. We wanted to make it easy for our teachers. And we wanted to have a uniformity of look, right? We didn't want, the other thing that we wanted was we wanted something that was going to be classic and not get outdated. Because the pictures in the 1952 Bible class workbooks were little Johnny and little Susie in the little church building, and there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely 100% nothing wrong with that. And what happens to little Johnny and little Susie in the church building? Well, 40 years on, that's going to be outdated, isn't it? What is not outdated? The Bible. The Bible is never outdated. And so we wanted a look in our graphics that always harkened back to what do we think the Bible stories actually look like. So we wanted that consistency in look and direction. We wanted a reusable program. What do I mean by that? Listen, it took me 10 years to write this nonsense. No, this team And our elders put together such a great team, but it took us 10 years to do this, and we didn't want to use it for a couple of years and then go have to look for something else. We wanted something that was going to last this congregation for decades, so that once we taught through it the first time and we tweaked it and we made some lessons learned, that we could pull it all back out of the box and do it again, and then pull it all back out of the box and do it again, and then, as you see, keep going and going and going. We wanted something that was reusable, that we were not going to, that was not going that we were going to be able to keep using forever and ever and ever. We wanted an engaging program. Why? Because we recognize that it's not the church's primary, the primary responsibility for teaching children belongs to whom? The parents. Not the Bible class teachers, not the preachers, not the elders. Now, the Bible class teachers, the preachers, and the elders all can be helpers in that. They can assist in that. But it's the parents' job to teach their children. We wanted to put things in the hands of the parents that helped the Bible class program and the parents to be partners in teaching the children. So we wanted to give the parents ways to be involved in the Bible class program beyond just dropping their kids off at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. And I'm super excited to show y'all some of the things that we came up with for that. We wanted an immersive experience. What do I mean by that? We wanted the kids from the minute they walked into the hallway, and I'm going to explain to you, so our church building, you walk in the door and there's a big gigantic foyer, right? And that's because we like to stand around and chit chat. And when they built that building, they intentionally put a big, huge place where we could all talk. They also put, and this is important, 3 times as many ladies' rooms as they did men's rooms. And we told them when they were building that building, they said, hey, what kind of feedback can y'all give us? And we were like, we got to take all the kids in between Bible class and church to the bathrooms, so can we have some extra ladies' rooms, please? So down this hallway here is all adult classrooms, and down this hallway here is all children's classrooms. And we wanted the kids, from the minute they got to their hallway, to know this is where I learned the Bible. We wanted an immersive hallway. We wanted classrooms. We wanted the kids to walk into a classroom and be like, wow, I'm in the Bible story. And I'm super excited to show you how we manage that. We had them paint a mural in the hallway. We have decorated the classrooms, and we wanted just a few weeks in each classroom to keep them engaged. What I mean by that, kids, their attention spans, and even grown-ups these days, attention spans go like finger snaps, right? We know that because used to we watched a whole 45-minute television show, and we can't do that anymore. Now we're down to like 45-second reels on Instagram, right? And you got to catch them in the first, 2 seconds of that reel, or they're going to flip right up to the next one. Attention spans go like this. And so trying to get kids for 13 whole weeks in one classroom and staying right there, we didn't want to do that. We wanted only just a few weeks in each classroom, and then we rotate the children out. And people are starting to say like, well, that sounds like Vacation Bible School. You are correct, my friend. It does sound like Vacation Bible School. And we sat in a meeting one day and we said, you know what? We put so much effort into Vacation Bible School. I mean, we decorate those classrooms up, and we spend the money, and we put all kinds of work into it, and then it's only for 1 week. Why aren't we doing that all year long? Well, girls, why aren't we doing that all year long? And that's what we said. Why aren't we doing it? So we did. We wanted just a few weeks in each classroom, and then we rotate them around. I'm going to show you a little bit in a minute how we manage that. We wanted a complete teaching resource. We wanted to put into the hands of our teachers, here's what we want you to teach, right? I don't know if y'all come from congregations where you struggle getting teachers to sign up to teach. I know, everybody does. We're like, we will bribe you, we will give you chocolate-covered gummy bears, or not if that's not your thing, right? What can we do to get y'all to teach down that hallway? Well, one of the things that we did to get them to teach down that hallway was to give them a complete, entire, consistent resource. Now, that's not to say that we don't encourage our teachers to do some personal planning of classes, obviously that we do, but we wanted to control what was being taught, and we wanted to make it easy for them to do that. So we wanted to do everything that we possibly could to make it easy for our teachers. Easier for them to prepare, and easier for them to teach. And, as I said, something to make it easy for our members to agree to teach. Because we didn't want to just guilt them into it, and we didn't want to just strong arm them into it, and we didn't want to just nag them into it. We wanted them to want to, And so we did everything that we could to make it easy for them to do that. We also, like I said, wanted to guarantee that consistency. Miss Diane, I put one more up there if you want another picture of that. Consistency, I think, is something that we don't think a whole lot about, right? But out in the world, we think about consistency of brand, you think about consistency of message, you think about corporations where their whole concept is just to make sure that when you look at specific colors and a specific swirl, don't you think, oh, that's Coca-Cola, right? We wanted that for our Bible class program. We wanted people to look at it and say, oh, that's stepping into the Bible, right? So how did we do that? The next thing that we did after we envisioned, that was our dream. These are the things that we want in our Bible class program. So the next thing that we did was we evaluated. And there was a whole lot to evaluate. We evaluated our media center. When we built our building, and it was exciting because the building that we are worshiping in now was built while David and I were in college. But after the elders had asked David to make preparation to come home to work at his home congregation when he graduated from Free Hardeman. So they were building that building while we were still in college and getting ready to come down. And one of the things that they built in that building was a media center. I want y'all to listen to this. 1,200 square feet just of the resource library, right? That's huge. That's bigger than our first apartment, right? And they planned for that. So we had already at this point been in this building for 98, and we started planning this in 2009. So we'd already been in this building for quite a while. And so we wanted to evaluate what did we already have and what did we need. So we had this media center that was completely loaded with decades worth of teaching materials. Flashcards, flannel graphs. Y'all remember the flannel graphs? Kids today, if you pull a flannel graph out, they're like, that is so cool, because we haven't used them in a couple decades, right? Yeah. I used for a couple times when I was teaching, the old school projector on the screen. You remember on the wall? They're like, Miss Tracy, this is awesome. I'm like, it's vintage. But we had all kinds of that stuff in the resource library, so we wanted to think about what did we already have. We had a huge space in there that was big enough that we could start working on the decorations that we wanted for the classrooms. We evaluated our classroom arrangement. And we determined that the classroom space was going to allow us to have space for 5 classes. Now, this curriculum goes from age 3 to 4th and 5th grade. That doesn't mean that we're not teaching the other ages, right? We have great toddler program, but this specific curriculum was written for age 3 to 5th grade. And we were very intentional about how we split those classes up. 4th and 5th grade, they're in a class together. 2nd and 3rd grade are in a class together. 1st grade and kindergarten have their own classrooms. And we were really intentional about that because kindergartners at the beginning of the school year are entirely different kids than kindergartners at the end of the school year. And if at the beginning of the year you put kindergartners and 1st grades in together, some of them can't write all the stuff that they need to write yet. They can't do the same handwork. They can't. So just to make it easier on the teachers, that's where we did the dividing, and then we put the 3 and the 4-year-olds together. And for the most part, that has worked out pretty well. Now, here's why I say this works for us. This works for us because this curriculum was specifically written for our classroom arrangement, right? So why am I telling y'all about that? Well, because y'all have your own classroom arrangement. So when you're thinking about what you need to evaluate, what you want to do when you start to write your own, this is one of the things that we had to evaluate was what space did we have. This is how we divided our classrooms, and then we evaluated our key people, right? We had to get a committee. Who's going to write this stuff? Turns out I was half of that committee. It was so much fun. Then we developed small auxiliary committees that were 2 to 3 people on each one. We had a classroom decorating committee because we wanted each classroom to be an immersive experience when you walked in the door, right? We wanted the kids to walk into the Garden of Eden to learn about creation. We had a hallway committee because we wanted a mural that went all the way down the entire kids' hallway, so we had people in charge of painting. And we had a teaching resources committee, and those people wrote the curriculum, but they also gathered the handwork, like I hesitate to use the word coloring pages because we had far more than coloring pages, but the reinforcement activity materials. So we had a committee that was just on that. After we did all of the evaluating, it was time to start executing this program. And this is when we started writing. We started writing Stepping into the Bible. And y'all, I have vivid memories. We sat in the elders conference room on Thursday nights every 2 weeks for like years. And one of the things that we did was we had a big old whiteboard, and we all brought our Bibles, and we all sat down and we started to identify which lessons need to be in this curriculum. Because we wanted the kids to step through the Bible. We wanted to go Old Testament to the end. We wanted them so which lessons do you put in, right? And so in order to do that, I'm going to read these to make sure I don't mess them up. In order to make it onto the list, the lessons, and we ended up with 280 Bible lessons as a part of this curriculum. And here's what it had to do. Here's what a story had to do to make it on this list. One, we asked ourselves, why are we teaching this? Are we teaching this because Noah is a really cool story and it's easy to decorate that room? Well, of course not. Every single story had to have an objective. Why are we teaching this to our kids? Why did God put this in the Bible? And you know what we found? Wow, this was really good exercise for us. Because a lot of times we think that Bible class is just to keep the kids occupied so that we can have our own classes in the auditorium, right? Are there people who think that 9 o'clock is my kids' church and 10 o'clock is my church and I just need to keep my kids occupied so that I can get through my worship service? Boy, if I do, have I missed the mark. Because God wants us worshiping together as a family. We went through these lessons to determine exactly which ones our kids needed to learn to mold them and shape them into growing Christians later in their lives. The second question we asked was, what purpose does this have for the children? Not just what purpose does this have for adults, because listen, let me tell you, our children need to know the story of Jesus dying on a cross. Are we going to teach that story to 3-year-olds a little bit differently than maybe we're going to teach it to 17-year-olds? Of course. So each story that we put into the Stepping in the Bible program, we had to ask ourselves, what does this mean for children, right? And how can we teach it to them? The third thing that we asked was, how does this is important, right? How does this story fit into the story of the Bible? And this is going to come up a little bit later in just a few minutes, because this is an important question for us to ask, because our children need to know that the Bible is not just a disjointed collection. It's not Grimm's fairy tales, right? It's not Aesop's fables. Every story that is in the Bible is in there specifically for a purpose, and it is leading us to Christ, right? The whole Old Testament is the story that someone is coming. Someone is coming. The Gospels are the story of someone is here. And then the rest of the Bible is that someone is coming again. And our kids need to know that. And so we needed to know for each story, where does it fit in the overall story of the Bible. And finally, like I said, we had to figure out, how does this work for kids, not just for adults, and how are we going to teach it. And we ended up, after we sat down with our Bibles and said, no, I think we should put this story in, or I think we should put that story in, and we discussed some, because you can't get every one of them into an actual curriculum, right? We identified 280 Bible lessons to be part of this curriculum. And then we did away with the 13-week quarter system. R.I.P. Y'all, some folks had some trouble wrapping their brains around that. But here's what we figured. Let's see if I can, Remember how we said that we wanted the kids to be able to rotate through the classrooms? I mean, it was wild. It was wild. Because we wanted the kids to start, like, in the creation room, and then they moved over to the Adam and Eve room, and then they moved over to the, like, in each, we had 5 classrooms, and they spent 4 weeks in each classroom. And by the time we figured out that 4 weeks times 5 classrooms was 20 weeks, we were like, oh, that's not a 13-week quarter. Whatever shall we do? And after a couple of weeks, David said, y'all, we're writing this ourselves. We can do whatever we need to make it fit us. And we all sat quietly for a few minutes. And we were like, you know, you're right. But wow, that was a little bit of a struggle. And then it was a struggle for the teachers. And then it was a struggle for the rest of the congregation. But I'll tell you some more about that later on. So each age group was going to be taught in each classroom for 4 weeks. And each classroom represented a particular division of the biblical narrative. And that's a whole bunch of big words to say. They were in this class for 4 stories, right? But those 4 stories fit a specific thing. So like maybe they were in the Abraham room, and in the Abraham room, he was going to travel, and maybe he was going to sacrifice Isaac, or maybe there were 4 lessons in the Abraham room, and then they would move on to the next one, right? Those 4 lessons were all grouped together in one room before they moved. And we called these, and then we had to have a glossary of terms, right? But we called those 4-week teaching rounds sessions. we decided we'd rotate every 4 weeks through the classroom, and each age group was going to have an opportunity to go into each classroom. Now, we recognized that some of those kids were going to get it out of order. Hello, VBS, right? That's what happens at VBS. And so the first person who said, well, I just don't think we can do that because they're going to get it out of order. I'm like, well, first of all, the 3 and 4 year olds are probably not going to be really getting that they're getting it out of order. So we made a determination that, well, you know, I'll tell you in a couple of minutes, we made a determination that one classroom, and one class in particular, needed to do it in order, and we chose the 4th and the 5th grade because we figured they were the ones who were going to benefit the most by going chronologically. The total time for these rotations is 20 weeks, and we decided to call that semesters because we could. We chose very specific. Mostly we called it that because you're going to go through about 2 semesters in a year. I'll tell you about the filler in a minute. And finally, an internal writing committee started creating each lesson plan. Let me just make sure. Here's the last one. Each lesson plan was intended for all age groups. Now, this is another crazy thing because this curriculum is for age 3 to 5th grade. We only wrote one lesson. We wrote one narrative, one take-home page, one for each lesson. So Abraham sacrificed Isaac, that was one lesson. But we gave the teachers, the 3-year-old and 4-year-old teachers, the autonomy to tailor that lesson for their age group. And we gave the 4th and 5th grade teachers the autonomy to tailor that lesson for their age group. We wrote each lesson we tried to write it at like a 1st grade level so that the 3-year-old teachers could tailor it down as necessary and the 4th and 5th grade teachers could tailor it up as necessary. But it was consistent because they were all going to rotate and all learn those exact same lessons. We were continuing to execute. We wrote the Stepping Into the Bible program, and here's what each lesson had. Y'all, I love this part of the curriculum. In the next session, I'm going to pass you out a whole stack of handouts, and one of the handouts that I'm going to give you is a sample lesson from our curriculum. Every lesson had an objective, which was the why are we teaching this story to our kids. So at the top of every take-home page, there's an objective, and it says, dear parents, here's why we taught this class to your children today. The second thing that we gave every teacher was a scripture reference. Where did we find this story in the Bible? The next thing that we gave them was a memory verse. Now listen, I know that some memory verses 4th and 5th graders can do, and 3-year-olds cannot. So again, we gave the 3-year-old teachers the autonomy to give their kids the option of doing like 1 John 2a for their 3-year-olds versus 1 John 2 for their 3-year-olds. But a lady who's been teaching 3-year-olds for a long, long time is going to understand what her 3-year-olds can do, and she's going to tailor it to fit them. Every class, but you know what? We expected the 3-year-olds to learn a memory verse. And so we made that a part of each one. Every single all of the things that you're seeing right here are on the front page of our take-home sheet. Every take-home sheet had a list of lesson facts. And it was really cool because the facts were not the narrative of the story, but they were the key facts that we wanted our kids to come. It would be like a Bible Bowl question because the other thing that they got were review questions. So little Johnny and little Susie, everybody goes home with a take-home sheet. Mommy, 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 this is what I learned today in my Bible class. You can ask me the questions. And the parents know what the answer is to the review questions because those are the lesson facts. So all of those things show up on the front page of the take-home sheet. And then the next thing that every teacher gets is a narrative. We wrote a 1-page narrative, a story, basically, of every single Bible class. That was my job. 280 lessons, 280 narratives. I love this so much. And then so we put that in the binder so that the teachers, if they wanted to, could just read that narrative to their classes. Boys and girls, I'm going to tell you a story today, and they could read that. They didn't have to, but we gave them that so that they knew what we as the curriculum committee intended for the lesson to be. And then we found after the first couple of rounds of teaching that the older kids needed more than just those things. So we went back in and we wrote for every single class, for every single lesson, we wrote some advanced discussion questions so that the 4th and 5th grade class could have discussion as a part of the lesson. Those were, I don't know if anyone's taking pictures of those. That's pretty much, that is the core of what we gave our teachers for each lesson. The next thing that we did for executing was the classroom committee. We wanted more than just written material for our teachers. We wanted them to have an environment. And so we decorated the classrooms, but more than that, we had a bin, like a big old Rubbermaid plastic bin that was for each lesson. And we stored them on big shelves in the resource library, and we numbered and labeled them so that we knew this bin goes with like Jesus healing miracles, right? And in those bins are puppets or puzzles or coloring books or storybooks or flip charts or flashcards or any kind of resource that we already had in the library that went with that story, we put into the bin. And so when it's time to teach this class, this lesson, we take the bin out and we put it in the classroom. So the teacher has everything right there in that bin that we have written, crafts, costumes, whatever we had that we could find that went with that lesson, we put in the bins. So we needed a classroom committee that was going to do that. We needed some kind of picture-based timeline in the room. And I'll talk more about this in the second session, and I know I keep saying that, but a lot of these things I have photos of so that I can show you what we meant by those. We found that we needed the kids to be able to say, where is this lesson right now in this whole 20-week session going on? And then we also had a bunch of teachers who were like, what do you mean I don't get to make a bulletin board? I'm a teacher. I make a bulletin board. That's what teachers do. We put a bulletin board in our classrooms, and we're like, not anymore. And they were like, excuse me, we have to have a bulletin board. So we created a bulletin board for every classroom, and the bulletin board was in fact 20, and I'm going to explain the images to you in the second session, but we created a bulletin board that was basically a map for the kids so that the teacher could say, here's where we are today. Do you remember where we were last week? And next week you're going to get to move to this classroom and you're going to learn all about this. And it was all on one bulletin board. It was super easy. The other thing that we realized was it takes a little bit of time to decorate a classroom, right? And you can't go from the end of Abraham and then move right over to whatever the next thing is without some time to decorate. So at the end of each 20-week session, I have 3 minutes to tell you the rest of this. At the end of each 20-week session, we had a 2-week mini session, right? Which was cool. That gave the teachers time to redecorate the classrooms, and we hung big black curtains in the hallway that said, you shall not pass, Gandalf. We did. And then we took all of the kids down to Fellowship Hall, the family room, and we had 2 weeks of review. And games from review, and songs from review, and we had a committee of people whose only job was just to handle those 2 weeks, right? So that while the classrooms were like undone, the kids were still getting, but more importantly, they were getting good review, and not just from this semester, but hey, what did we learn last time? Do you still remember that? And how does what we learned this 20 weeks fit into what you learned 40 weeks ago, right? And in that way, we were reinforcing as we went all that they were learned. That's when we created the 2 weeks mini session and gathered them all together. So we had a hallway committee. I'm going to skip through this because basically the hallway committee people painted a mural and it was awesome. We wanted it to be interactive. Some of the things that are in the wall mural are 3D. Like we put like wooden boards over one door so that they could paint blood on it, right? So that was the Passover. It was really cool. And it took us a while to get that whole entire hallway, but I have photos of it, and I'll show it to you in the next one. I'm going to pull all these up really fast so that you can see them all. The last thing that we executed was the Teaching Resources Committee, and I talked about that a little bit. Those were the bins. So we had some decorations in the classrooms, and when I say some decorations, like one classroom had a big giant tent in it so that Sarah could sit in the tent laughing. Right. One of the classrooms, when it's time for Paul's missionary journeys, they built a cage, floor to ceiling, so that the kids could be in jail and they could sing with Paul and Silas. Right. So some of the decorations were pretty serious decorations. The decorations were different from the what do they call it? The handwork, the visual aids. That those things went in the bins. And then we also had that they could sign up for in the resource library additional assistances. One of the questions that we get asked a lot was, what is different about Sunday morning and Wednesday night? Well, we didn't tell the teachers that. This is your lesson for this week, and we expect Sunday morning to be the teaching and Wednesday night to be the reinforcing, right? So they get the same lesson basically twice. Wednesday night, they could sign up for additional assistance. We had a game guy who would come and play Bible Jeopardy with the kids, but you had to sign up to make sure that you got him first, right? We had a song guy, and he would come and sing songs with the kids. One of the things that was in our packet for the teachers is a list of suggested songs. Songs that would specifically reinforce this lesson. And then we sang the songs and recorded them, and we made a songbook so that we knew the teachers were all singing it the same way. Because, listen, people in West Palm Beach, Florida sing some of the VBS songs wrong. Don't tell David I said that. They do. And he said, you can't sing the Tennessee version anymore, honey, now you live in Florida. But we recorded it so that all of the teachers would know the Florida way to sing it. So what we tried to do was realize a dream of doing it ourselves and doing it in a way that would fit our congregation and fit our kids and fit what we were trying to do. I know I went through that really, really quickly, and a lot of that is trying to wrap your brain around what does that mean. In the next session, I'm going to have handouts and photos that will explain to you how we did it, and so I hope you'll hang around for one more minute. The big thing is, you can do it. If you're willing to put in the effort, you're willing to put in the work, and you're willing to put in the expense, and you're willing to trust in the Lord, and you're willing to accept the very most important thing that we can do as a congregation is raise up the next generation. You can do it. You can do it. All right, thank you so much.